There we go. Right on the candle close here, everybody. So this does look like it should continue higher. That looks like a decent 2-candle formation here. What's awesome about this setup is that you do have a D1 entry in here as well that looks like it'll help confirm this idea to come higher. Why I'm not jumping into this trade just really is because of this swapping market sentiment line. I like to quantify the market sentiment line, which means I like to put a number value to it. And since majority of the day so far, the market sentiment line has been in the sell zone. See here from the changeover of day till right here at 3 a.m. where it comes up into the buy zone. It's spent most of the day in the sell zone. So automatically that's going to decrease the probabilities of the long ideas working out. However, I do still think this comes higher. It's just not a high enough probability trade for me to want to put money on it. But I do think you're going to see this continue to hold the 8 EMA and continue to rise. I think this will happen as we're watching GCAD also moving higher now, and GJ moving up to the 200 towards the 50 here. So you'll see them all moving up. All of our ideas today are bullish. So let's break this one down first. Let's put the vertical line here, right? Let's pull up the 1 minute so I can show you the D1 that goes into this. So if you look on the 1 minute right here at about 5:30 in the morning, see how price action is falling, but the RSI is rising? That's the divergence that James and everybody was looking at to send this higher. Since it's had that divergence, if we use this marker, we'll say here's a higher low, then here is a higher low. I would say all of this is the same level. So now as we're seeing this 2-candle formation close, if we sync this up, you'll see the higher low from the D1 entry that you would look to take an entry potentially on is the same stop loss basically as this 2-candle formation. So I would say this is not a high probability trade, but a pretty decent setup only because you've got this 1 minute D1 into the 15-minute 2-candle A1. This is D1 entry into A1 entry. Now, it's still a low probability setup because of that 15-minute swapping liquid 50, but it should continue higher as it has so far in the first few minutes. So this is the first idea of the day that we're really, I would say, pretty hot on. GJ has also presented a D1, D2 idea that we're going to talk about. And like I said, GCAD moving up as well. If we flip here from Euro AUD over to GBP CAD, you see GBP CAD has shifted up here. The 8 crossed the 21, pushing off the 200 EMA. And you can see market sentiment line today is very, very bullish. So that kind of feeds the long bias. The issue is up here at yesterday's high. If we draw the box at yesterday's high with that pin, you can see that's the zone that we're having a lot of issues with. So what I said to everybody in the chat this morning is that I wouldn't take a trade on GBP CAD until we break through that zone. Now, you would potentially come down here at the 200 and look for 1 minute divergence to see if you get a D1 that sends you higher. You do not have that here. You don't have a D1 and you don't have an A1. So still, there is no entry here. But what this is doing is good for us because if this can break above the zone, retest it and give us an entry on that retest, that's a great place to look for an A1 or a D1. If that makes sense to everybody so far on where the entry is on Euro AUD just now versus the no entry on GBP CAD, give me a yes in the chat. Give me a thumbs up. I'm watching right now. Give me a yes in the chat or a thumbs up so I know everybody follows me so far on Euro AUD and GBP CAD. Does that make sense? Well, if everybody just said bless you, thank you. Good. I'm seeing yes, 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 yes. Good. Okay. So we talked about Euro AUD, talked about GBP CAD. Good. Everybody's following me there. So we're not taking an entry on GCAD. Now let's look over at GJ quickly just to break this down. Okay. So we'll start on the 15-minute to kind of come up with where James created his bias for the day. So if you look at yesterday, price action finished higher. We had a bullish day yesterday after it bounced off the 800 EMA. Today, we drop back down to the 800 EMA and we throw this swapping liquid 50 into the play. However, if we keep the higher time frame bias, which because of the EMAs, we can tell is long, and we can see yesterday's bias was long, then we could potentially see this bounce off that 800 EMA and continue higher today. So at the 800, James, because he knows what he's doing, even with the swapping liquid 50, he's on the 1 minute looking for bullish divergence that will send us off this 800 EMA in the direction of the higher time frame trend. Now here on the 15-minute, it looks like this would be a D2. If you know the Asfx systems, this would be D2 because it's bearish on the EMAs. But on the higher time frames, it's a D1 because you're coming off the 1 hour 50 EMA, which is the 15-minute 800. So really, in my opinion, the name of it in this situation doesn't matter. What matters more is that you go to the 1 minute, you find risk reward, and then you very closely watch the 8 EMA, because if this holds above the 8 EMA as it has so far, it will continue most likely to rise. Now, it's at the next level of resistance, which is at the 50 and at the 200 EMAs. But if we go to the 1 minute, you'll see where James found his risk. So you see the divergence set in back here at 3 o'clock, 3:30 this morning. That sets in the bottom, as you can see from my notes. This is the bottom. 1, 2, 3 hits to that bottom, then it moves off the 50 EMA, retesting the 50 like we like to see with that market sentiment line in the buy zone. Now, the market sentiment line dips into the sell zone briefly, but what it's doing there is making higher lows off the divergence structure. From the bottom here, you've got a higher low right here, higher lows right here. And since then, it's continued up now towards that 1 minute 800 EMA, pulling the 1 minute liquid 50 back into the buy zone, which tells us that it should continue to rise. But again, because we're trading counter trend, we have to be aware of the fact that it could stop at that 1 minute 800, which is the 15-minute 50, the blue line right here. And we also have the 15-minute 200 EMA. So a lot of resistance right here, but it's still above the 8. It could sit here for a little bit and then still continue higher. I don't think James is far off with this idea at all. But I want you guys to see that it's not, don't get caught up on D1 or D2. Find the significant level, find your bias, even with a swapping liquid 50. Look at James. He's an advanced guy with our systems. He's not letting this swapping liquid 50 prevent him from seeing a trend, prevent him from seeing a bias. And then he's using the divergence and the higher lows on the 1 minute and what we know to be a safe D1 entry to take this trade, reading risk reward and being able to identify that. So that's what he's doing here on GBP JPY. And I don't hate this idea at all. I'm really interested to see what it does here. Does it break through these two EMAs, the 50 and the 200, and continue up? Or is it going to find resistance here and make its way back down towards the 15-minute 800? So we'll watch this play out. We'll keep an eye on this very closely as we're going to watch Euro AUD as well, which looks good. With a two-candle formation like this, you want the next bar to be bullish, to continue in the direction. Because what you're trading here with this D1 into A1, it's great. That's awesome. If this was a perfect liquid 50, I'd be in this trade, no question. But what you're trading here is just the end of the pullback, as this is still in an upshift from the end of the Asian session. So you're just waiting for the pullback to finish, identifying the A1 entry, which signals the end of that pullback, and that's where we look for these trades. But often, because we have this swapping liquid 50, this swapping market sentiment line, that tells me that this might not break for a new high of day. This might pop and fall back lower, just because often swapping liquid 50s do move in the direction that we thought, but they chop. They don't move straight as a perfect liquid 50 would. Does that make sense to everybody so far? Everybody with me now on Euro AUD, GBP CAD, and GBP JPY. Give me a yes in the chat so I know you're following. Give me a thumbs up if you haven't already. Let me see who's